The following program paid for by Rosenberg Financial Group. Providing live finance advice since 1993. It's time for Your Money with Steve Rosenberg, Sherri Goss, Randy Goss, and Becca Wilton. To participate in today's program, call 478-742-0940 with your financial questions and comments. And now, live from the Macon studios of News Talk 940 WMAC, it's Your Money.
You are listening to AM 940 WMAC. You are listening to Sherri Goss, and Becca Wilton is here with me, and we are with Rosenberg Financial Group. We have offices in Warner Robins and Macon, Georgia, and we have different programs to help people invest their money and retire and relax. So if you want to know anything more about that, or you want to give us a call and set up a free, I think I can say free. For a while there, they said we had to say complimentary. It really doesn't matter. I don't think.
It's the same thing.
It is the same thing. But we do complimentary consultations with myself, Steve Rosenberg, Becca Wilton. We can sit down and talk to you about and with you about all of your plans for retirement, when to take Social Security, do you have life insurance you need to retain, all of your investments, estate planning, do you have a will? I mean, we cover the whole gamut, even planning for your kids and for their education. So give us a call, 922-8100, offices in Warner Robins or Macon, and visit us online. RetireRelax.com is our website. Tons of great special reports you can download for free. And
what about the number to call in this morning if they have questions?
Oh, that's a really good idea. 478-742-0940. 478-742-0940. And Randy is already texting me, what did I do wrong?
Oh, he said we can say free.
Oh, he did? Yeah. Okay. Very good. So anyway, so if you have a question, you don't want to call in because a lot of people don't like to be heard on the radio. They're intimidated by that. You can always text me. 478-954-9855, Sherri Goss. You can text me your questions or you can email me to sherri@rfmoney.com, SHERRI. So let's take it away. I've been cleaning out our house. Every week I go to a cabinet and I look at what do I not need anymore, what do I not use, what am I doing with this junk, and a lot of it I drag into the office and try to pawn it off on other people. And if it doesn't go there, then I take it to Goodwill or Salvation Army. But I found a bag of fleece blankets that I had made before COVID. And if you go to a fabric store, well, you can look it up online. The Cancer Center in Macon takes donations of fleece blankets because people are sitting there going through treatment for hours and they get cold. And so they have these closets full of these blankets people donate, and they can go pick one out. And so I do ones for kids. I try to find fun fabrics that a kid would like that would kind of cheer them up a little bit. And so I found some, and then I had some fabric, and so I finished the other ones I was working on. And you can go online and see the patterns and the dimensions and whatever, but there's always sales of fabric. And if you just want to do something good and fun and happy, that's you don't even have to know how to sew.
And just tie knots?
Yep. All you have to do is need a pair of scissors and some kind of a measuring tool, like a big yardstick.
And I've seen the kits that you can buy where it's actually pre-cut and like both the colors or whatever.
They're expensive.
And then, I wondered if you could use like a Michael's coupon or a Hobby Lobby coupon maybe. And buy the whole
Hobby
kit.
Lobby quit doing the 40% off one item thing.
Oh, did they?
I was up there about a month ago thinking I was going to get that, and they're like, "Oh, we've discontinued that because
that's horrible.
Because people like me would only buy one thing and get 40% off.
Come back every day of the week or every.
And
week.
I'm sure I'm not the only one that was doing that.
I would do that sometimes.
And so Joann's, I get emails all the time from them of discounts and stuff. But it's a fun, easy project. Anybody can do it, and you just donate them right there at the Children's Cancer Center off Spring Street. It's right next to Navicent. You can just walk in and drop them off, and they will appreciate that. So it's 700 Spring Street's the address, and they're open 9 to 5. So if you want to do something fun and happy and make some little kid feel good, go fabric shopping today. All right. Next thing we're going to talk about is these ESG funds. So the asset management industry is marketing a style of investing that purports to take into account environmental, social, and governance factors. This blew my mind when I read this. So far this year, inflows into ESG funds accounted for about a quarter of the total, up from a tenth in 2018. On average, 2 new ESG funds are launched every day.
That's just crazy. That is a lot of funds. 2 a day, they're creating brand new funds, and there's got to be a limited number of companies that fall in those categories.
It's probably the same stuff in every fund. So this week, The Economist crunched the numbers on the world's 20 biggest ESG funds. On average, each of them holds investments in 17 fossil fuel producers. 6 have invested in ExxonMobil, America's biggest oil firm, so I don't know how they're green. 2 own stakes in Saudi Aramco, the world's biggest oil producer. 1 fund holds a Chinese coal mining company. ESG investing is hardly a champion of social virtue either. These funds we looked at invest in gambling, tobacco, and alcohol. So the SEC is trying to figure out how to regulate this because people think they're investing in all this green stuff. And so the question is, what does a government do with all of this? It says one possibility is to follow the European Union's approach. Its latest Green Deal includes lots of new rules about sustainable finance. Underpinning them is an elaborate state-directed taxonomy which covers some 70 different activities and aims to tell investors what is green and what is not. Inevitably, the effort has run into trouble. Go figure. Countries have been furiously lobbying the EU to ensure that their favored source of energy is labeled as green. Poland and Romania, among others, want natural gas to be added to the green list because they're planning to use it to replace coal. So rather than the EU play God, investors can decide for themselves what's green, but they need a big improvement in corporate disclosure. The current system of largely voluntary reporting is riddled with problems. Firms disclose reams of irrelevant puffery while often failing to reveal the few things that matter. And so this article suggests a better system would force companies to reveal their full carbon footprint, including emissions from the products they sell and the goods and services they buy. It would help if big polluters also revealed how they expect their footprint to change and the amount of capital expenditure that goes toward low carbon investments. So imagine Walmart having to create or calculate their carbon footprint for everything that they sell.
That would be crazy.
They sell lawnmowers, they sell leaf blowers, they sell electric things, they sell gas-powered things. They sell tons of things made out of plastic, which plastic is not clean energy. I mean, how would you do that? And all the clothing that they buy out of China and these foreign countries that has to be shipped here on a boat, how would you calculate a carbon footprint for a business? That would be the biggest boondoggle. And so, anyway, so I looked at Kiplinger had an article this morning, and I just found this morning, so you don't have this, but so they had the top 20 ESG funds. And so I looked at the first one, which I won't give you the company name because I'm not recommending it. I'm just telling you what it is. It's a social index fund that was created in February of 2019. The whole of the holdings, 32% is technology, 18% is consumer discretionary, and 13% is healthcare. And it looks a lot like our Retire Relax portfolio, honestly. So the top holding is Apple, then Microsoft, then Amazon, then Google, then Facebook, for the most socially responsible companies. And I was looking at Amazon because of all the deliveries and the cardboard and the plastic. I mean, we get something every week that comes via the postal guy who drives he drives a gas-driven vehicle, or by the UPS delivery guy that drives probably diesel or gas, whatever is powering those vehicles. They're driving all around all day long, delivering all these things that are packaged with plastic and cardboard, which most of that does not go into a recycle bin. We do it at our office because we can take it to the recycle center once in a while because we just let it pile up. But where we live downtown, we have a dumpster for our building. It is full of Amazon boxes every week. It is packed with plastic and trash and cardboard. So I don't know. They say that they're recycling things. And the biggest thing that I saw that made sense about Amazon is they have started making their products like Echo Dot and all of that out of recycled materials. And they've started asking people to return things so that they could refab them and recycle them and whatever. But I don't know how, and they say they're recycling cardboard. I don't know how they're doing that when people throw it in the trash can. But I don't know. They did buy a wind farm. They built a wind farm in Texas, and they say they're going to be carbon neutral by 2040. Microsoft says they're going to be carbon negative by 2030.
Ooh, not even just carbon neutral. They're going negative.
But you got to think about how big Microsoft is and how many employees they have and all of the electricity they burn and all the computing power and all of the, I don't know how you'd have all I can figure is these guys are all purchasing carbon offsets or credits to become green, which means that they're just buying from like a Tesla and applying it to their own balance sheet of their carbon footprint. I don't think any of this is accurate. I don't think any of this is what people think they're getting into. I don't think people understand what they're investing in with this. And it's just crazy that it's attracting so much new money.
Yeah, I think like with the ESG, like you said, that people need to do research. People need to really see what they're investing in. When you read the title of that fund, you just assume one thing, but you really have no idea what you're getting into.
Right.
It kind of reminds me of health food. These companies can label anything, and you say, oh, it's granola. Well, then if you look at it, it's got all these fillers, it's got sugar, all this stuff. And you don't really know what you're eating, but you see the name brand and you think you're trying to do something good.
Because it's called healthy something.
Right. And so I think that's the same way with companies. And then not only...
That's a great analogy.
Like you said, that these companies, how are they really measuring what they're doing? And there's not a good measuring system. And some of the companies are so elaborate, like Amazon, how many different millions of companies they deal with. There's no way that they could measure how their total output with all those products of what they're doing to the earth.
Just think about all the people they employ at Amazon and all the people that are involved in the delivery. They all breathe. They breathe in oxygen. They exhale carbon dioxide. They're all breathing.
They're
all
little
walking
machines
around
by all their little areas. They'll all have like little masks on that like help recycle the air as they work.
I mean, I don't understand how these can say they're green. I mean, Apple, they're producing their product in foreign countries that don't even have regulations. I mean, this doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. So please understand what you're putting your money into. These funds, the returns have been good because they're in the sectors that are doing well. I don't think it has anything to do with any social responsibility whatsoever. And I don't know if this is a trend that's going to actually stick, or if Biden is not in office next term, if it gets reversed like all the other stuff that gets reversed every time a new person is in office.
But, kind of research and think about why you're doing it. Do you just want to say that you have some ESG funds? Do you think it's the cool, trendy thing? But, are you really doing something that's good for the environment? And are you doing it for the right reasons? And is it, are you really getting into what you think you're getting into?
Yeah, I agree. So just as a side note, primary sources of greenhouse gas emissions in the United States, transportation is 29%, which makes sense. Cars, trucks, ships, trains, planes. Electricity production is 25% of greenhouse emissions because we're using coal and natural gas to produce electricity. Everybody keeps forgetting about this. Just because it's electric doesn't mean that it comes out of a tree. Industrial is 23, commercial and residential 13, agriculture 10, because those darn cows that burp. And land use and forestry is 12, which actually those numbers add up to more than 100%. So take it with a grain of salt. Anyways, you want to head off with this one?
Yeah, so we're going to talk about something that's like up and coming and all cool. Meme stocks, M-E-M-E. You guys know what memes are? So a meme stock, the definition is a publicly traded company that is benefiting from the forces of a band of ordinary investors who are using social media to drive interest in the company's shares. So the most notable ones right now have been GameStop, which I'm sure you've heard about that. Over the last couple months, GameStop got tons of news media, and now is AMC. So the movie place, they're getting a lot of press, and the stocks has just been wildly going up and down, and so many people are reading things on Reddit and just social media sites, and they want to get in. People have the whole fear of missing out, and you hear one or two examples of people getting thousands of dollars and overnight, and so then everybody starts jumping in on it, and then the stock tanks in one day within hours, and then you just don't really seem to hear about the people that are losing thousands of dollars within
millions
a couple hours.
Of dollars.
And so we had this article about the AMC, and it was just really interesting to see the wild ups and downs of it just within one day. And the stock was actually halted 3 times during the first half an hour after opening. And so something that I learned more about when I went through all my schooling and testing, all that good stuff about trading halts. I didn't really realize that was such a thing, but just to give you a little information, a trading halt is a temporary suspension of trading for a particular security or securities at one exchange or across numerous exchanges. And so if you followed anything about GameStop, I think it was Robinhood that stopped trading and everybody went bonkers, and they just didn't understand how they could just stop. And people were trying to get out of the stock or trying to get into it, and everybody was just outraged that they couldn't do exactly what they wanted. But these trading halts are very legal, very they're done typically when there's been announcements that are getting ready to be made of some big news thing that's going to really affect the stock's price. Then,
or if the market's really falling,
right,
they'll stop, at like 15, 25%. They have different percentages from the high that they'll just shut down the whole market. Yeah,
they call those circuit breakers, where, like Sherry's saying, if the stock market starts taking a huge break and they have certain levels, like you said, that they'll stop it for so many minutes at certain times when it hits level 1, level 2. So it's kind of interesting. If it's something that sparks your interest, look it up. But the trading halts, the stocks got so out of control with the AMC that they started halting the trading 3 times in the first half hour after opening.
This is crazy. That was up Wednesday. Up 417%. I mean, when things swing this wildly, you have to realize what comes up is going to go down.
Yeah, one of the quotes was, "When the music stops, this stock is going to fall hard," in my opinion. So, it's a very risky thing to get into something like this. That's just, you aren't studying the company to know how strong that company is. You're just following what people are saying, and you're hoping to make a buck. But, is your retirement money worth this? And, how many people actually make money versus all the people that end up losing money on it?
So the thing that interested me about this article is the fact that when it was high, the CEO chose to sell a bunch of stock when it was at a peak, and the company made $1.246 billion, and that was seen as a positive because they're in the tank because they haven't been able to be open. I don't know how much money they got from the government as far as bailout money to stay functional, but the company is using that to pay down debt and to balance out their balance sheet. The problem is, here's an analyst from Wall Street Journal, Macquarie analyst Chad Bagnon and his team reiterated their $6 price target for AMC and neutral rating. This was afternoon trading on Thursday. While the group recommended AMC CEO for his embrace of the enthusiastic retail trading community and voiced optimism on a box office recovery post-pandemic, the analysts remain concerned about the company's balance sheet. AMC is hampered by $5.5 billion of debt as of the end of first quarter. $5.5 billion. So they made $1.2 billion in the sale of stock when it was at a peak, but they still have a lot of problems and they have a lot of expenses. And so they're saying this thing is worth $6 a share, and it was trading last week one day for 67. I mean, that's a problem.
I think that was Thursday. I think you printed that. It was 67.04, and then when I printed it Friday, it was already down to 56. So it already dropped $11 in one day, and that's after the sale of all those other shares. It's just, and they rated about $6 stock. So it's kind of like paying $100,000 for a Ford Focus or something. So don't overpay.
Oh my gosh, that's a great example. So it's just interesting that the company's taking advantage of it, and they say in this other article that the CEO has been really feeding into the whole frenzy and posting things on social media and encouraging people to buy and pushing the prices up. And then they took advantage of that by selling a bunch of shares so they can right-size the company, which to me that seems illegal.
It definitely seems dirty.
Yeah. So on the flip side, you had Bed Bath & Beyond. They also got caught up in this mess because everybody thought they were going bankrupt. I didn't realize that the guy that runs Bed Bath & Beyond is the guy that turned Target around. He was their Target's chief merchandising officer. He's level-headed, decisive, creativity focused, and he believed he could bring the cheap, chic, cool factor back to the discount retailer. And he achieved his mission, and Target's bottom line continues to benefit from it today. And his last name is Tritton. So he's now the CEO of Bed Bath & Beyond, and he went into the company. He canned the terrible, long-tenured, underperforming management team. He wasted no time to sell off non-core assets to raise a boatload of cash to fund a turnaround. He laid out long-term financial targets to Wall Street and is delivering on them in a very volatile retail backdrop. Meanwhile, he is aggressively remodeling stores and totally overhauling the merchandise in them in a bid to regain customer loyalty. So they got caught up in this whole mess of the online communities buying into this company and pushing the stock up. And he said, basically, it's not changing anything of how we do business. This is like a blip on the screen, and we're not going to react to it. We're not going to feed into it. It is a bunch of people that are doing this that is beyond our control, and everything is going to be fine. And he just says, stay true to the vision. And he says, this article says that could be defined as leadership, staying true to a vision, even if something otherwise insane is grabbing all of today's headlines.
So this company has, a strong foundation now, and he's really turning it around and from the inside out. Whereas the other company we talked about, they're just trying to live off of the hype and get the company to do, just by word of mouth. And like you said, he's just kind of saying, just move on, just keep your head down, keep working hard. And doing what you're doing. And that's, kind of back to what we were saying earlier. Make sure you're doing your research on companies, and don't, invest in a company just because it's going a cool thing to do, or you think it's going up. Do your research and make sure the company is a solid company and they have a good foundation. And
we're not recommending that you buy either of these companies, because both of their stock values are inflated because of what's going on out there. Mm-hmm. So I read this quote the other day that was really good by Napoleon. He says, "A genius is the man who can do the average thing when everyone else around him is losing his mind."
Oh, that's really good.
That's kind of this.
Yeah, with all the Robinhood, all the people that got into all the online trading, and everybody thinks they're an amazing trader now because they can use an app, and they just don't really realize what they're getting into. They just kind of put their money in there, and there's some of them that do. You just pick a route and they invest it for you, which may be better. I'm not sure if that's better or worse, but at least somebody else is hopefully doing the research for you.
Yeah, just be careful out there. You can get burned. Alrighty, on to a different subject. This is from Clark.com, how to stop robocalls. So I had a client in last week, and she was hilarious. We were going through all of her financial everything, and she said, do you realize that $3.3 billion has been lost to robocall scams? And she said that she answered her cell phone one day. I don't answer them. I don't answer any call I don't know who it is. They can leave me a message and I'll call them back. I just do not.
I hate it when it shows up like Macon or Warner Robins, and you're like, is it a doctor? Is it someone I know? And they trick you.
Right? And so she said that one day her phone rang and she answered it, and it was a male voice, and it says, "Grandma, this is your grandson Jason, and I've been in an accident in North Carolina and I need money for bail." Somehow he was in jail.
Oh, wow.
Right? And her response was, you don't ever come to see me, so why should I help you? I'm going to leave you in jail, and hung up on him. I thought that was hilarious.
That's awesome.
But she just really shouldn't answer them at all. But anyways, Clark Howard has a good article on things that are out there in the shift that's coming in the industry to help avoid these calls. You want to cover this one? You want me to take it?
Sure. Yeah, so there's most carriers offer a free product. So check with your cell phone carrier. AT&T, T-Mobile, and Verizon all have a free call filter, and then a couple of them have a premium one that you can purchase and spend money each month. But I know I'm with Verizon, and I had gotten a message that said, hey, sign up for this. And so now it'll come up and it'll say potential spam. So I just ignore any of those anyway. I don't think I've ever had anything that was actually a real call that was marked potential spam. And the article we have goes into detail about how they use, all sorts of programs to see like how many people these phone calls are trying to identify at one time and how many calls they've made at a time. It's fancy algorithms to determine if the phone number's making thousands of brief phone calls so they can mark it as spam for you. But most of your phone companies should offer a free program, and I will say that probably, I don't know, maybe half of the calls I get show up as potential spam, so it does help me just think less about should I answer this or not. But I'm like you, I try and not answer them and just let them leave a voicemail, because they're either trying to sell me a warranty, they want me to go on a special vacation, or could be this really bad scammers that are trying to get money to get out of jail.
Right. So there's two types of technology that have been developed because of this problem, and that the acronym for them are SHAKEN and STIR. So a signature-based handling of asserted information using tokens is SHAKEN. Secure telephone identity revisited is STIR. They're dual technology efforts that aim to verify a given call originates from the number that it says that it does, and that is the key to this whole thing. The key is the use of token technology. I don't know, that's all details people don't care about. But I will say, I was in the Macon office one day last year, and my phone rang, and it was our son. And he said, Mom, I'm returning your call. And I said, I never called you. And he said, your name was on the screen.
Oh, wow.
My name was on his phone. And he was returning my call. I said, I never called you. 10 minutes later, Randy called me. And I said, hey, what's going on? He goes, I'm returning your call. I said, I never called you. And he said, your name was on my screen. Your name. And so they both answered it because they thought it was really me. Or they returned it and I didn't leave a message because it wasn't me even calling. So I called Verizon and I talked to somebody about it, and I said, this is a serious problem. It's almost like somebody has hacked into the system and understands that the three of us are connected as a family somehow, and they've been able to get all of our numbers. I don't understand how this is possible. And the girl I talked to said the only solution is to get a new number. And I said, well, that's a nightmare because of all the things I'd have to change and with everybody of changing my number. And she said that what happened to her is her phone was calling this guy, and this woman, the wife of the guy, thought that he was having an affair with this girl at Verizon because her number and name kept popping up on his phone, and she didn't even know who he was. So one day, this lady calls her on her cell phone and says, you need to leave my husband alone and back off.
Oh, my goodness.
And she said, I don't even know who you are. Well, the wife didn't believe it. And so she had to change her phone number because it was getting so seriously bad that they were going to press charges. Or she was going to do something with law enforcement or something to try to get her to stop harassing her husband when she wasn't even making the calls.
Wow.
That's the worst one I've ever heard of.
That's crazy. Yeah, they break in and they can just somehow scam numbers where they just plug it into the program and they call out from any number. So they're using local numbers to confuse you and make you answer the phone. And that's crazy. They got your number and called them. Where,
right.
If your number hadn't been programmed in your phone, they would have never known
they wouldn't
who it
have answered
was.
it.
But that's crazy.
To have my name show up, that was creepy. And it's never happened again. I would have thought that it would have kept happening, but it's never happened. It only happened that one day.
You wonder if their programs are smart enough where they only use each phone number for a day or a little bit of time and then move on to the next phone number or something. But
people are too smart.
On the T-Mobile, it said that you can get a second number for free that's available, so you can keep your personal number personal. So you can get a free number change if scammers do become problematic. And like you said, it's kind of a pain to change your number, but if you did have a situation, a lot of your phone companies will change you to a free number to switch it over. But if there's something that you're getting a lot of these calls, if you got a second number for free and you knew only the people that you gave that number to were calling that one, that might be kind of cool if you're really getting a lot of calls and it's really bothering you.
So the FCC has issued a mandate for all voice service providers to have the robocall fighting stir-shaking technology in place no later than June 30th of this year, according to a news release. I have this article if you're interested in it. It's from Clark.com, but I can scan it and I can email it to you if you want to. Sherri, Sherri, at rfmoney.com. Anything we talk about, if you ever want to see it, you can always email and ask us so we can forward it to you.
Wouldn't that be great if after June 30th a bunch of the calls stopped?
Mine have stopped tremendously. I hardly ever get any. And I just thought it was because I didn't answer the phone. If I don't recognize it, I never answer. And I just delete the voicemail because it's always something really stupid, some recorded garbage.
Maybe you're on the do not call list because they're she never answers, just don't even bother.
I don't know. Yeah, it's really weird. I don't understand it. But my older clients, I get them to stop answering the phone because, there are scams out there. Just like the one, your grandson. I had a guy tell me, I did a seminar somewhere a couple of years ago, and this guy came up to me afterward and he said he got caught up in that scam. He was dead asleep one night. His grandson was backpacking through Europe.
Oh, wow.
And the guy called and proclaimed to be his grandson in Europe. Just was a freak anomaly that it was true.
Wow.
And said, been arrested, wrongly arrested. I'm in jail. I need legal help. I don't have the money for it. Is there any way that I can use your credit card? He got up in the middle of the night and got his credit card out and gave his number and the whole everything to this person and went back to bed and got up the next day and realized, oh my gosh, and verified with his family, called the family the next day to see was he really in jail, and he wasn't, and had to shut his card down. And so they can catch you off guard. I was driving one day and Verizon called me on my phone and it came up as Verizon, and so I answered it. And while I was driving, sorry, I shouldn't have done that.
Hands-free, right? You answered it hands-free.
So I answer it, and they wanted. They said, "We just want to confirm who you are. We've had a security breach in our system, and so is this Sherri Goss? Yes. And this is your cell phone number? Yes. And you live at so and so? Yes. And the last four of your social is waiting for me to tell them." And I said, "I am hanging up on you." It was a total scam, and I was on my way to a networking program. And I mentioned it to the ladies there, and one of the ladies had the same call and gave them everything.
Oh, no.
Gave them her social and her birth date and the whole nine, because it was so realistic, because it came in looking like Verizon, and they already had her number and her name and her address. And so she just was like, "Oh, whatever you need, sure, I can help you out," and gave them everything that they needed.
Well, like you said, I've had a client come in and she said, she's getting a little older and she had a stroke and she gets confused easily, and she said, "I can't answer the phone anymore because these people tell you I'm from your mortgage company,
Right.
I'm from Medicare,
Social Security,
I'm from the Social Security
IRS.
office," and so you don't really know. And like you said, a lot of times they have your number and your name already, and so then they start asking you for information. Well, if you're calling me from the Social Security office, you should have my Social Security number. Don't give them any of that information. But
They're never going to call you. Social Security,
the IRS,
none of them will ever call you.
They don't have time for that.
No, they can't even get their work done. They're not going to call you. But anyway,
always,
crazy.
Just hang up. And if it's something, if they say your account's, been hacked, or your account's, I've had someone call me one time and tell me my Social Security number was suspended. And I was like,
how does that
work? How
work?
do you suspend my Social Security number? But, say, well, I'll just call back, and then go,
Right.
online, or ask, somebody you trust, call us and find a good number, and then call and see if it's something that's really wrong with your system or your, but trust me, I don't see how they can suspend your Social Security number. I think you're
Right.
safe there.
So Randy has texted us. He says there are computer programs where you enter the area code, then the first three of the phone number, and then the computer auto dial the remaining four digits. Anyways, so if you want that article, let me know. It is halftime, and so we need to explain who we are. I'm Sherri Goss. We're here with Becca Wilton. We're financial advisors with Rosenberg Financial Group. We have offices in Macon and Warner Robins. We do complimentary consultations.
We have a call.
And so give us a call, 922-8100, to make an appointment to see either of us at either branch to talk about whatever you want to talk about regarding money. Let's go to the phones. Good morning. You're on with Becca and Sherri.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you today?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good.
So have you had a lot of robocalls lately?
Oh, we get them all the time. 6 is a normal number for the day.
Oh, yeah.
Are you the one that has the blowhorn that you blast into the phone when they call?
No, ma'am.
I had somebody call and they have a blowhorn, like one of those air sirens, air horns, and if it's a live person, that's what they do is they blast it into their thing, and then they hang up.
Sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, a little tension release. So what's on your mind today?
Well, I had a phone call from. She told me she was my broker. I had never talked to this person before.
Mm-hmm.
And she was just calling up to touch base with me, say, "Hey, how are you?" and all this kind of stuff. And I said, "Well, let me say something before we get any farther." I said, "I don't know who you are. I have never talked to you before. I want to hang up and call you back on
Smart.
a line that I know is my broker's phone number." And she says, "That would be just fine." So we hung up. I called, and it went through the little phone tree, and I got to her, and then we had our conversation.
Wow. Well, good. I'm glad you were careful with that, because that could have been a scam.
Well, if it's really somebody that's, not trying to steal from you, they're going to let you do that. It's not a problem.
Right, they're going to do whatever it takes to make you comfortable and validate who they are. So just like she did, okay, well, call me back.
Yes, so that's exactly what I did, and it worked out just fine.
So every broker should have security protocols. We have them in our office. So if somebody emails me or emails one of the ladies in the office and says, "I want to take a $10,000 distribution," we never do anything without verifying who this person is and that they actually wanted to do that. And we make them give us the social. We make them confirm, and we call them, and then we make them confirm data that we have on them before we do anything. Because I tell you, it is the Wild West out there. So you've got to be careful. You did the right thing.
Yes, it is. It's terrible, the things that go on, and They try to get you in some way or another. And truly, they sound real.
Right.
You know, we have received those ones, like you said, I'm backpacking in Europe and been arrested, and the whole 9 yards.
Especially if you have like 8 or 10 grandkids and you're like, well, I don't know. Where are they all? You know, it might be
Right.
hard to keep track of them.
Yes, absolutely, we do.
Well, very good. Good tip. Thank you
Thanks for
so much.
sharing.
And go get an air horn at Walmart.
Sounds like a plan.
They're probably cheap, $5 made in China. And they're probably not made out of recycled material, so you're probably increasing your carbon footprint by buying one.
There you go.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Good call. If you want to call, the number here, 478-742-0940. Next article, you're going to maybe want a copy of this. I'm big on the VA stuff and making sure that everybody understands how stuff works and when things change. And this was a big deal this week. The Department of Veterans Affairs will soon start processing claims for 3 new presumptive illnesses linked to exposure to herbicides in Vietnam and elsewhere. And if you didn't serve physically in Vietnam, you need to understand, if you were on a naval vessel, that's part of the Blue Water Veteran thing that is now included in this. I have a client that was in the European theater. They're working on 2 claims for him. If you were in the States where they were testing this junk, I mean, you could have been exposed in many places, many more than they initially said. I have a neighbor who was working at a depot in Thailand where the planes were flying in and out, covered in Agent Orange.
Oh, my
And he
goodness.
was unloading and reloading everything that was in the plane. Very sick. He is very sick from this, and it didn't happen until he was in his 70s, which is very fascinating to me. You would think if you were exposed to toxins like that it would happen immediately, but I've seen many cases where people don't have PTSD or Agent Orange illnesses until their 70s. So if you haven't done anything about it, here's the first thing we need to do. If you were in Vietnam and you have any health problems, you need the list of all the presumptive disabilities, and I can email that to you. I'll scan it and send it to you. I just printed out the list yesterday to have a fresh one, but my email is Sherri, Sherri, at rfmoney.com. And you need that initial list. Well, this week they announced they have added bladder cancer, hypothyroidism, and Parkinsonism, which you don't even have to have the Parkinson's diagnosis. You have to just have Parkinson's-like symptoms to the list of conditions. Anyway, so they've added all those things. Veterans whose claims are approved may receive an earlier date for entitlement to benefits, a decision that could result in more compensation because it's done by percentages, and you all know that. The department plans to automatically review previously denied claims and will notify the veterans or their survivors via mail.
I think that's great, but I also think you need to jump in there because...
Yeah, because what if you just developed this? What if you just developed bladder cancer last year? They're not going to know about it because you never filed a claim because it wasn't on the list.
Well, and they said they have backlogs. So even though they're going to go back and review the previous claims,
Yes.
they said they had 190,000 claims still in their backlog, but they've covered about 20,000 since January. So they are making headway, but there's still 190,000 people waiting. So call and get yourself to the top of the list if you can.
And the other thing I find, the people in their 70s that served over there, they're like, I'm okay. I don't really need to file for that. Well, unless you go talk to the VA, you're not going to understand what you're missing out on. And one of the biggest things that we've discovered, in fact, we were talking to a client this week about it, and he served over there, and he has a few health things going on. And I told him about Randy switching over to the VA for medical, and that there's a really great medical clinic in Macon, Georgia. And he didn't have any idea. He thought if he went to the VA, he'd have to drive all the way to Dublin. Because when he first signed up with the VA, because he is a percentage disabled, that's where he had to go, all the way down there. And he said it was such a rigmarole. You sit around for an hour waiting for your appointment, and then they take you to another room, and the processing was sloppy and just frustrating. And he just threw his hands up in the air on the whole deal. That's not what we've experienced at all. We have experienced incredible care by smart people and no long waits. And so that one place you can go, where I sent one client a few months ago, was the Vector Center down in Warner Robins, because they can help file claims. If you want, and you have to just make an appointment and go see them and take all your records and talk to them about what's going on. So
Yeah, most of the people I worked with on base, they all went to Dublin. I don't think I ever heard of anybody talk about going to Macon. So
I don't
it's just kind of like
understand
a
it.
secret that no one knows about. And
I
maybe
don't get it.
that's where all the better care's at.
It's really weird. So anyways, veterans should file claims for illnesses they believe are service-connected, even if the conditions aren't listed as presumed to be related to service. I have never heard this before. Illnesses that a veteran believes is service-connected that is not on the list. So they're opening this thing up wide. I don't know, and so I would love to hear from people. If you go down this rabbit hole and you find that you are going to get a percentage disability for something that's not even on the disability list, that's new. That has never happened before, to my knowledge. Okay, the second one that came out, and this is one that I pound on quite a bit, is burn pits. So the VA is creating a list of conditions thought to be linked to burn pits and other air quality problems experienced by veterans who served in Iraq, Afghanistan, and elsewhere, wherever they had a burn pit. It doesn't matter. Announced Thursday, the department will start the rulemaking process to add chronic respiratory conditions such as asthma and sinusitis to the list of presumptive illnesses considered linked to the service. It's about time.
I can't believe they just now think asthma is a problem from it. Really?
I mean,
you're
seriously,
inhaling all this toxic
burning
stuff.
Jet fuel. So we had an employee 3 years ago. Her husband was in something big in weapons, and so he was flying in and out of that theater all the time, exposed to all those bases. And when he was 1 year from retiring at 20 years, and the entire nasal passages in his head was burned out.
Oh my
And there
goodness.
was nothing they could do about it. And they told him, "You will have lung cancer.
Wow.
You will." And so they retired him, and then the VA started this process immediately. And I don't know how he's doing, but it was terrifying. Married with 3 little kids, being told you will have lung cancer. I mean, so it's about time they do this. So if you want this article, email me.
Yeah, it said Congress is considering massive
Yeah.
health care packages for veterans with illnesses caused by the exposure to the pollutants. So, I mean, it's time they step up and help these families because, I mean, it can be, completely debilitating and where
Yes.
you're just not able to even work or your quality of life is greatly changed.
So they estimate 3.5 million veterans were exposed to burn pits. That's what I was told when I was at the Vector Center doing a program 2 years ago when they first opened. The lady told me the burn pits are the new Agent Orange.
And what the department historically has maintained that the science is unclear on the link to it. How can they say that?
I don't understand it. I guess they have to see so many cases, but if they're not accepting cases, how do they know how many cases there are?
So it sounds like they're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, there. So I'll be less mad at them now. Okay. All righty.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, you
How
take
about
this one.
this? How to find an old 401k.
This is great.
So there's a lot of you out there, and maybe you even have kids or grandkids that have worked a couple different jobs, and maybe you have some small 401ks here and there, or maybe you aren't sure if you had one where you worked. So there's several ways to find them. The first one, obviously, is to contact your previous employer. So find a number for the HR department and ask them to check their records, see if you participated in the 401k, and just be sure you have all your information and the dates you worked. Sometimes, I know I worked for a company, the very first company out of college, and it was, I think, 3 different names over the course of the 13 years I was there. It kept getting bought out. And so it said due to mergers and bankruptcies and relocations, it's often not possible to locate the former employee. But see if you can find any information, an old plan statement or anything that would have contact information for the firm that's actually administering the plan. Or if you have some maybe friends that worked for the company that are still there and were there through all the mergers, maybe they could have some information about it. Something that I found interesting that I was like, oh, that makes sense. Most plans are required to file an annual form. And so you can search for these forms. It's a 5500. And you can, there's a website, www.freearisa.com. And so if you can find the form 5500 on the old plan, it'll have contact information on how to get a hold of that employer and to find if you had a plan with them. There's a national registry, and there's also a U.S. Department of Labor's abandoned plan database. So if you want information on this, just email me. It's Becca, Becca, at rfmoney.com, and I can give you this article. It has the links to some of the places you could go look. But it also said before you go to all this trouble, you might want to actually make sure you contributed to the
Right.
401k. So go back to your W-2s and see if that you really did. But, a lot of people do realize they had it, but they just kind of leave it behind. And I think there was an article one time called your junk drawer, and you know how you have all these little things in there that just kind of get forgotten about and just left in there and behind. And I think that sometimes people do that with their 401ks. They have several 401ks, and they have they just leave $2,000 or $3,000 behind and don't think about it again.
Right.
We have a call.
Yay.
Good morning. Oh, they hung up.
Call us back, 478-742-0940, or you can text or email me with a question.
So we would be happy to help. We both would be willing to help people. If you have a 401k that you're a part of right now, we would be happy to look through the options that you have and see if it's, at the right risk tolerance for you, if it's, what all your options are to invest in. Because a lot of times, when people started a job, they're told something by either their HR department or the buddy in the next cubicle,
Right.
and they're like, hey, you should just join this fund and that because that's what I did and that's what I was told to do. And that's the way you're figuring you're investing for the rest of your future. So we would be happy to go through your current plan, and, we're not going to try and get you to bring all your money over. If you're happy with your plan, that's great, but we'd love to help you make sure that you're doing the best you can with what the options you have there. And then we have had some instances where we've helped people consolidate. I had one that was like 3 different companies they had, and it took some time, but we ended up getting all of the 401ks moved into an IRA, so it was all in one place. And, if you are about to leave an employer, it's often good to go ahead and take care of that initially so you don't lose track of it, so you don't, the company doesn't change names. Oh, we have another call.
Good
call
eyes.
back.
Good morning. You're on with Becca and Sherri.
Yes, hi. I was driving when you were having a discussion about scammers and robocalls.
Yeah.
And a few years ago, I read an article about an app called Truecaller, and I downloaded it on my phone. Just took about a minute. And for the last few years, I have not had a single scammer or robocall where it rings through. And why doesn't
Awesome.
it ring through? It doesn't ring through because it recognizes all of my contacts. I have like 150 contacts in my phone, and if the number coming into me is not in my contacts list, the phone will not ring.
Oh,
and
wow.
if it's really important, of course, they can leave a message. So, I've missed calls that were important, but later I saw that I had a message from someone that I might have just known, but didn't load into my contacts list. So I highly recommend it. My wife still gets robocalls and scammers all the time and runs to her phone, and she doesn't want me to download the Truecaller app. And it's wonderful.
You can't convince her, huh?
Maybe she needs an air horn.
I can't convince her of a lot of things. She's her own person.
That's hilarious.
Well, it sounds like a good app.
Well, I appreciate you not driving and calling us with a good tip. That was very helpful.
Well, thanks for taking my call, and I really enjoy your show.
Yay,
you.
have a great weekend. It's beautiful out there. So, yeah, it's a big problem. But that business of the old 401ks, it's billions of dollars that are laying around in old company plans. It's amazing to me. It blows my mind that this is that big, and people need this money, and they need to know where it is and how it fits into their retirement plan and all of that.
So I had one of my first clients, actually, she worked at Frito-Lay, and she had left, and she'd been at another company for a long time, and she had like a disability, and so she'd left and, hadn't really paid attention to her benefits, and I guess they don't do a good job of like an exit interview and talk to you about that kind of stuff.
I
And
wouldn't
so-
assume that.
Yeah, I don't think so. In her case. And so she said, hey, from one of my friends was talking to me, and they said I probably have a 401k and all this. And so it took a lot of work, and we went through unclaimed property because it had all gotten turned over to that point. But she ended up having a 401k. She had company stock, and then from the stock that she'd had all these years, there was dividends that had been paid, and she had a check for over $1,000. And so we had to, she had to put in claim forms for each of these individual things, and we moved them all and moved them over to our company. We're able to consolidate things for her, but it was over $50,000. And now she has it invested, and she knows where her money's at. She watches it right now. It's still growing and doing great. And so, it's a peace of mind, and she didn't even realize she'd had it. She'd kind of forgotten about it. But
That's so
just like
crazy.
you said, out of the billions of dollars that are sitting out there, go back and make sure you know where every account was. Go back through your employers and say, do I know if that money, if I had money there, where's it at? And again, when you're about to leave, if you are changing employments, I know it's a lot more popular these days than it used to be. People, I think on average, are at employers about 3 to 5 years now. So that can add up over time if you do have a pension plan or a 401k plan. But if you are changing employers, think about doing something with that money right when you're leaving so you don't forget about it and let it kind of fall through the cracks. And plus, if you're just letting it sit there, you have no idea what's invested in, and it could be like in a G fund getting 0.5%.
Right. And the other resources that I don't think we mentioned are missingmoney.com and unclaimed.org. So these are assets that could include life insurance. I mean, because people forget about all sorts of stuff that they have that's in their name. An old bank account that you never closed, that the money got dumped over into unclaimed.org. So if you're bored this weekend, just go check that out, and you can put in your last name and see, and do a search by state and see if there's anything that you should go get.
You know, speaking of life insurance policies, I have a family member, and she lost her husband, and it was very unexpected. So, you know, they hadn't done a lot of estate planning, and she didn't know about an insurance policy he had.
Wow.
And this was like 10 or 15 years later, and I forget how it came to light, but she found out about this policy, and so she just had to do the claim form and provide the death certificate. But, you know, it kind of goes back to what we've talked about. Make sure that you have, you know, a written plan, you know, get Sherri's life book, and write down everything that you do have, because if you've taken the time to accumulate it, pay for it, whatever it is, you're wanting to leave this to your family, and if you've paid for a life insurance policy and no one even knows you have it, you know, it could end up going to unclaimed and sitting there forever.
Right.
So make sure that you're doing a good job of communicating with your family what you do have, and you know, just make a list, even, and you know, write it out on a piece of paper if you don't want to do it.
Put it in a safe place and tell your beneficiaries where this information is. That's the key. At least tell your executor.
Yes.
And so I had a client in 2 weeks ago. It was very interesting. Her husband had recently passed. It was just terrible. But she was very organized, and she had to make some life insurance claims. And so she called me to tell me what the experience was like. And she said, Sherri, I was able to do the whole thing over the phone. I didn't even have to send in a death certificate. She said, I called the company, and they asked for the name of the funeral home. They went to the funeral home website, and they were able to pull up his death certificate from there and confirm everything with the funeral home.
Yeah, because a lot of the funeral homes actually are the ones that file the death certificate.
See, I was surprised they didn't already do that for her when they were processing everything else. I was surprised she still had those life policies. But anyways, so they did. She was able to do it all over the phone. They're mailing her checks. And she asked me, she said, why on earth? That they said they had the option of they could hold the money for her. And she said, why would I want to do that? Why wouldn't I want control of that money? And I said, well, back in the day, some of these companies used to pay 5% interest if you left the money there. But now nobody's paying any interest. So I don't know any reason why anybody would leave the money there and not want control of it themselves. So she's taking it all and putting it in the bank and probably going to invest it with their other assets. But yeah, really, your family needs to know where all your stuff is, property deeds, the whole 9 yards. All of that needs to be in a safe place. We have a fireproof safe, and then we backed everything up. All of our insurance policies, deeds, car titles, everything is backed up to a encrypted thumb drive that I carry in my purse wherever I go. So wherever I go, I've got access to every insurance 800 number, everything that I would have to call if something happened to one of us, and Randy has one as well. So,
and you know, another thing with, you know, if you come to speak to somebody, you know, come and talk to Sherri and I, maybe have like a family meeting. We've started, you know, we're going to work out with our clients, having them come in maybe once a year and bring in all their family members, because a lot of times the husband and wife may come in and speak to us, but the kids aren't involved. And so, you know, there comes a time where you know, I know you kind of hide things in secret and people don't want to know everything, but, you know, everybody's going to pass away eventually, and it's so much better if things are already out in the open and your kids know about information. But, you know, maybe if you do need to have some tough conversations, or just don't even know how to start them, come and see us. We'll be happy to help kind of mediate that, just help you talk through some of the things, some of the issues, think through things. We've talked a lot about pre-planning for funerals. I mean, it's such a bargain. You know, Sherri and I are such bargain hunters that, you know, if you prepay for that things, you can save thousands of dollars by getting paid.
Yeah, and keep people from overspending. That is the key. People overspend because they're in an emotional state, and those people at the funeral homes, I'm sorry, they're nice people and everything, but they are salespeople.
Yes.
And they are going to upsell you. Wouldn't you like to add this to the casket? Wouldn't you like to add this? There's so many things you could add to the casket now, and it's going in the ground.
But she really needs a really comfortable, smushy pillow top.
I think you should have a rent-a-casket. Have a rent-a-casket for the funeral so you impress everybody with this gold-plated thing, and then you get buried in a box. You know, to me, that would be
I'm all for that, but my family, we've been, unfortunately, through a few deaths in the last couple of years, and my family does not have the same opinion that I do on that.
Oh, wow. We're being cremated. We're going into an urn. And when the second one goes, then we're going to get blown in the wind somewhere. We haven't figured out where that is.
So are the kids, are they both supposed to go together, or did you put one of them in charge of it?
We didn't. Well, Preston's the executor, and so he could be in charge of it, or I don't really care. They could go make a trip out of it if they want to and go somewhere fun and dump us into an ocean or something. I don't know. Doesn't really matter by that point. We'll be long gone anyway. So, It's just ashes. I just can't stand the thought of spending. I'd rather spend the money and have a giant party and invite all of our friends and neighbors and stuff. And
absolutely.
blow it on something like that.
$10,000 on a party than a casket.
Yeah, exactly. So this is kind of fun. We only have a couple minutes. How many minutes do we have, CT?
1.5.
2 minutes. This year, I'll just say really quick. You've probably heard of this McGregor guy. He's a UFC champ and sometimes boxer. He is now the highest paid athlete. Is it in the world or just the United States? I think
don't know,
I missed
probably
that.
the world because he's from Dublin. Or is
Yeah,
he
he's from
Dublin?
Ireland.
So.
Yeah. So he started out, I'm trying to find where the start out is.
He started at 12 in boxing in Dublin, and then he worked his way up as a plumber's apprentice, and he began fighting for scraps at the local mixed martial arts circuit.
But he has done huge for himself, and I love this quote. He says, "I am in debt to the tough times." He spent years just scraping by. He says, because when you break through, you're an unstoppable force. I love that he's thankful for the tough time that he grew up, how tough his life was growing up, because it turned him into a tough guy that helped him become the #1 paid athlete in the world.
We don't appreciate those hard times we go through, but that's what builds character. That's what makes you stronger.
You learn from it.
Absolutely.
You learn so much from that. You learn a lot more from that than from getting a handout from somebody any day.
You don't learn anything from that.
So anyways, Becca Wilton, Sherri Goss have been here entertaining you for the last hour. I hope you've enjoyed the show. This is Your Money on News Talk 940 WMAC. Our website is retirerelax.com. Check it out. Download the special reports. We have one on Social Security that's very helpful if you're nearing that age and you want to really understand how that works. It will walk you through all of it. There's another. The Life Book is free on the website. It's free printable, and it's also free as a fillable PDF. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Thank you.
We'll see you next Saturday.
The views expressed on this show should not be construed directly or indirectly as an offer to buy or sell any securities or services mentioned herein. Investing is subject to risk, including loss of principal invested. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. No strategy can assure a profit nor protect against loss. Please note that individual situations can vary. Therefore, the information should only be relied upon when coordinated with individual professional advice. Securities are offered through Royal Alliance Associates Incorporated, member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services are offered through Rosenberg Financial Group, a registered investor advisor not affiliated with Royal Alliance Associates Incorporated. Offices are located at 2517 Moody Road, Warner Robins, and 4875 Riverside Drive, Suite 201 in Macon. Phone numbers are 922-8100 and 741-4457.